And so even, in my foundation, just we talked to some kids from some of the grantees, and they're talking about, and they're going home and talking to their parents, and
Oh,
they're
wow.
talking about how they need more mental health resources in their schools, and it's definitely a different vibe than when I was growing up, and I think even after between me and some of my friends and us talking about our mental health with our parents, I've started to see some different shifts happening. I mean, a
Mm.
great example that I had was this past year. I went to eat with like 6 or 7 people, and they're primarily my agents in China, and as well as another athlete in the CBA, another basketball player in the CBA, and some friends. And as we were all eating, we started to kind of talk about panic attacks.
Mm.
And so we had mentioned this concept of panic attacks, and immediately one person was like, "Oh, is really that happens? Like, I didn't realize that, like, wait, so," and he started asking these questions, and he was like, "Man, it can't be that common." What ended up happening by the end of the conversation, everybody went around
Mm.
and said that they have had panic attacks, multiple panic attacks, and this group of friends has been friends for over a decade, and
Wow.
they never talked about it and never knew about it and never heard of it. And every single person went around talking about how they had a panic attack here, or this person struggled with panic attacks occasionally, or this person had one here. And all of a sudden, it was like at the end of the conversation, the guy was like, my agent was like, "Wow, so it looks like I might be the only one at this table who, who, who has no idea what this feels like."
Wow.
And so it was just really eye-opening to me to realize, like, because when you go through these things, you feel alone and you feel like
Mhm.
you don't know who to talk to. There's no one else that you can talk to about. And so that kind of really challenged me too, like to continue to try to use my voice, my
Mhm.
platform more, and to kind of fight more for mental health and breaking that stigma.
Yeah, I'm sort of going in circles as I listen to Jeremy's story because I do think we're still so early in this process as an Asian American community, as a global Asian community. I mean, I think of how. I mean, I almost remember to the day, or at least the week, or the era when I had conversations with my friends about David Chang, the chef, talking about his mental health and how that was such a big deal when he was so open and
Mhm.
wrote about it in his book. And I remember mentioning it to a friend, and Jeremy, your name came up because it's like, it's really cool to see even athletes, Asian athlete, talking about
Mm.
mental health like that. And just it's still in this era where when somebody who's recognized and like comfortable that that you relate to, like you guys, talking about this topic, it's still one of those like people are surprised. It's like this in a wonderful way, but I still hear the surprise in people's
Mm.
voices. It's not like, oh yeah, the 500th famous Asian person we know is talking about mental health. Yeah, they all talk. It's like still this wow moment
Mm.
because you don't. I still react with surprise, and I mean I'm much older than you are, so I still, I am carrying with me kind of the expectations and norms of a slightly different generation.
Mm.
But I think for me and my peers, there's this, oh yeah, we can talk about this now. It's like we've all been quietly going to therapy, but now we can talk about this. But I do see it more. I do feel like the response is so positive now that people are really loving to see those messages.
Mm.
I think from a researcher's perspective, because so much of my time is in research, when we talk about Asian American and Pacific Islander health disparities around mental health, so much of it is just the numbers part of it, because of the reluctance to report,
Mhm.
um, kind of collides with our poor data collection when it comes to any health problems among Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. So I think, when you think about all the steps you need to take to appropriately address a health problem, you have to like understand the problem and collect the data and then devote the appropriate resources to it and develop good target outcomes. And, you go through that whole process. A lot of times with Asian American mental health problems, we're really starting at the data collection, understanding the
Mhm.
problem, because it's been so hard to, um, to get people to report, to seek help, to, register as a dot when you're looking at all the, the health services that are used, for example. So I think some days I feel like, wow, we've got so far to go to actually feel like we're robustly addressing mental health problems. And then there's times where I feel like there's so many, increasingly more inspirational stories, and people so hungry to hear those stories and feel like, okay, like that conversation can happen, and people like Jeremy and David are making these huge, it's like, just like a single voice like that, I feel like has these huge ripple effects. It gives people permission to have those conversations with their friends.